Good morning. I am Colleen Derrick, a financial advisor with Swaggers Insurance Services. Welcome to the month of October and our mini course of Money Moves. We know that money moves. When we leave it alone, it still changes. Resources move and change. Economics move and change. Even if you take cash, currency, tuck it in your sock, put it under your mattress, when you take it back out, it probably does not have the same buying power or the same value as it did when you put it under, because the currency exchanges have changed and inflation will have affected your buying power. This is just the nature of resources. So we can either be impacted and react to the movement of money, or we can be instrumental in orchestrating how it moves. This month, we've been looking at money as a leader, as a follower, as a mingler, and how it can also divide. In week number 1, we discussed setting your money up to lead and looking at God's example in that from Exodus, Leviticus, and Numbers with the Israelites. So by giving precise instructions on the precious nature of the offerings for God's temple, God led the Israelites to an awareness of the sacred and precious nature of the temple, which would invite them to share God's presence. So he used these precious resources that the Israelites had, bringing them to the temple and how to set them up, to set this clear direction that they were intended to help support and encourage and lead them into relationship and sharing space with God. We saw through that the traction he gave them with building this temple so that this was possible. He equipped them with skilled craftsmen. He didn't just set them at this task and leave them to fumble around on. He equipped them with skilled craftsmen so that they could do this well. That's what we call traction, to put in effort where it's gripping somewhere and making forward movement out of that. And these craftsmen enabled the Israelites to follow God's instructions well and come out with a fantastic product. Setting the money up to lead with communication, we saw that God showed the Israelites how to manifest their desire for relationship with appropriate offerings, letting their offerings communicate their heart state. And then with balance, relationship requires two parties. And this always leads to inequities and imbalance. And God gave the Israelites instructions on how to use resources to restore relationship. So their money was set up to lead. The resources were set up to lead their hearts into balance with one another and worship and relationship with God. The second week, we looked at money set up to follow. And we used Paul, because he was the great communicator. And we saw that he had this very clear change in direction. And so we looked at him for our week number 2. Paul was very clear about his mission to persecute the Christians. Everybody knew it. This was not a secret. Paul was very good about clearly having that committed direction and communicating it to other people. So when Paul changed his direction, it was very visible. And he was very committed to it. And so his resources, he used to put those into persecuting Christians. Now those resources followed him into preaching about salvation through Christ, because he committed and was intentional to that direction and made it very clear. We also see how he had traction that he was delivering to his followers. When he was writing Timothy, he didn't want Timothy just spinning his wheels trying to figure this whole thing out. And so he gave him clear, actionable instruction on how to use money to support his mission and teach his followers how to use money to support their mission, so that they actually had resources to make this change of mindset, of heart state, of lifestyle. Paul wrote many, many letters as he was committed to communication. We've discussed that. We see that through his life. And here we saw him demonstrate his understanding of the power of communication to lead our actions and financial decisions. That was in 2 Corinthians 9, 1-3, right? And encouraging them to also communicate because of their enthusiasm. It was spurring others on. Finally, we closed up the money set to follow with Paul. as specifically addressing balance in finances towards our hearts. He knows that we can become so passionate that we may topple, reminding the Corinthians to set their money, to follow their commitments and personal lives, balancing their personal lives and their ministry with supporting other people's ministries, was very insightful of Paul. And we can learn a lot from that example, that yes, we need finances to live, as he tells them, hey, make sure you actually have this money that you're giving, have that money to give. Sacrificial giving is good. But again, you've also been called to live your life as a ministry to Christ, and you need resources to do that as well. So he did an excellent job of helping us through week number 2, which brings us to week number 3, which is where we are today, money as a mingler, building money into a part of your team, having it be a tool with clear direction, traction, communication, and balance. Consider clear, united goals. Allow each team member to focus their efforts into a joint venture. Setting targets for individual items helps. It's true, right? We have to have the clear direction for the team, and then giving each individual in the team some clear action points and items that they're to be focusing on is very helpful. That's great when we do that with our money as well, right? We need to know that it's suiting our big vision, but to also have small set action points and clear goals for each of our little pockets really helps feed the bigger goal. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. Set your money up the same way. Traction. Certain products may not have much value by themselves. However, they may complement other products, allowing them to function together with greater power and security. So don't judge it on its own merits necessarily. See, does it blend well with the other things that you have in your product line, and support them, because that is a value in and of itself. Communication. As things change, events occur, and the unexpected impacts us. Communication between team members is essential. How will you pivot together to stay on track? And balance. When one person loses balance, another person who is well-grounded can provide support. We like to set up our money that way as well. 6 pillars of finance. If one of them is getting a little teeter-tottery, it can lean on the others until we shore that up and get it reestablished. Lend strength and support. So money moves within life. Incorporating it as part of a team is more challenging. The team can be your family, your financial plan and suite of products, your community or corporation with the body of Christ. These are all different teams that we can see money functioning in. So knowing the job of each entity is essential. Coordinating is an ongoing process. It allows us to do tougher and greater things together and provides security and support. When we take a look at Exodus 16:4, then the Lord said to Moses, I will rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for that day. In this way, I will test them and see whether they will follow my instructions. On the 6th day, they are to prepare what they bring in, and that is to be twice as much as they gather on the other days. I'm seeing clear direction from God here. I'm seeing, hey, I'm going to give you your direction. Go gather what you need for that day. I'm testing you. Clear direction. This is a test of dependence and reliance on God as the provider. And he's giving them the clear direction. And hey, on this one day before the Sabbath, you're going to actually collect twice as much as you need, because the Sabbath day, you're not collecting. And in Deuteronomy 8:3, he humbled you and let you be hungry and fed you with manna, which you did not know, nor did your fathers know, that he might make you understand that man does not live by bread alone, but man lives by everything that proceeds out of the mouth of God. He was giving them a very clear direction to use this resource of manna as part of a tool to learn, to grow, and as part of the team for daily provision to support what they were called to do. He's setting very clear boundaries for them. When we look at the traction that God helps us to learn to help it mingle with, Deuteronomy 8:17 and 18, otherwise you may say in your heart, my power and the strength of my hand made me this wealth. You've heard the term self-made man. That's not new. Look at Deuteronomy. But you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who is giving you power to make wealth, that he may confirm his covenant, which he swore to your fathers as it is this day. And then in Proverbs 11:24, or I think it might be 14, anyhow, 14 and 15, those who give freely gain even more. Others hold back what they owe, becoming even poorer. A generous person will prosper, and anyone who gives water will receive a flood in return. Are we seeing some traction here? Yeah. And Proverbs 13:11, dishonest money dwindles away, but whoever gathers money little by little makes it grow. God is saying, if we honor his principles and his heart and make money a part of the team rather than making it the idol, that here's how you can get traction with your financial situation, with stewarding your resources, reminding us that it is by God's power alone that we will build wealth and be able to keep it and have it grow. That doesn't mean we can't build wealth on our own. It's in here. Yeah. But how much, and does it get eroded, and how quickly does it grow? Or is it actually then being a destructive force in our lives? So God shows us how to get traction in the well-being of our lives with our finances, not just let it tumble downhill, gaining its own momentum and rolling over things destructively. So how God set money up to mingle with communication. Numbers 34, the Lord spoke to Moses. We have communication, saying, command the people of Israel, telling him to communicate, and say to them, when you enter the land of Canaan, this is the land that shall fall to you for an inheritance, the land of Canaan as defined by its borders. Your south side shall be from the wilderness of Zin alongside Edom, and your southern border shall run the end of the Salt Sea on the east. And it goes down here and it describes all of these borders very, very specifically. This is clear communication. You shall draw a line from your eastern border to, it continues on, eastern, the western, the north, all of these borders are clearly specified. And he says, this shall be your land as defined by its borders all around. He is not just saying, hey, yeah, we're going to kind of go and we'll figure this out as we go. Or, I kind of want you to be, on that tree and sort of those mountains. No, this communication is good communication. It is clear. And he is telling Moses that not only is he giving Moses clear communication, that Moses is to clearly communicate it to the Israelites. How God set money up to mingle with balance. So in Leviticus 25:1, the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying, speak to the people of Israel and say to them, when you come into the land that I give you, the land shall keep a Sabbath to the Lord. For 6 years you shall sow your field, and for 6 years you shall prune your vineyard and gather in its fruits. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath of solemn rest for the land, a Sabbath to the Lord. You shall not sow your field or prune your vineyard. You shall not reap what grows of itself in your harvest, or gather the grapes of your undressed vine. It shall be a year of solemn rest for the land. The Sabbath of the land shall provide food for you, for yourself and for your male and female slaves, and for your hired worker and the sojourner who lives with you, and for your cattle, and for the wild animals that are in your land. All its yield shall be for food. Balance. You're not to run your ground into the land. This goes back and reminds us with the manna, right? They are also to take a day of rest. Balance. The land needs rest. The people needs rest. God took a day of rest. God designed us to live in balance. God designed resources to work in balance. And here he's showing the Israelites how to set those resources up, that they're providing, you're prospering, you're providing, and then we're resting. We're letting our resources rest so we don't just have this compounding growth rate. That is not a biblical principle, and I understand that as a world principle today. We want escalating GDP every year. We want continuous growth. That is not sustainable. God did not design the earth that way. God does not design us that way. He designed us for ebb and flow. This is why we also go through and we read in the Bible that God said, that there was the reverting of debt, so that one person did not just continue to accumulate and accumulate and accumulate mass amounts of wealth. That wasn't the design. The design was that we would have enough wealth to enable that we could do the tasks and the calling and the ministry that God has designed us to do. That's the intent. And so we see here that he has shown us how we can do that with balance. I hope that you found some takeaways this week that you can apply to your own relationships, your own attitudes to do with money, and your own finances. Next week, we're going to go on and look at how money can be divisive, and how we can actually orchestrate that to be more of a positive thing and ward against it being a destructive thing. So as you remember, balance, communication, traction, and clear direction. See how money can be a part of your team as a tool, as you're stewarding it, part of a whole wellness. Have a great week, and we'll finish up October next week.